I think I'm going to be a responsible student and check my classes before it starts. So I checked my classes, right? And then it turns out I had an assignment due that night. I was like, oh, it's a good thing I checked it because I would not have known if I didn't check. So I opened this class, and it's one of my psychology classes, right? The title is like positive psychology, right? And pretty much this is the psychology, the study of happiness. Okay, can everyone say happiness? Happiness, right? And for my first assignment, besides like the icebreakers and the intro, like say one fun fact about yourself, whatever, right? Like I also had to watch this TED Talk, okay? And this TED Talk, the guy giving it, his name was Dr. Martin Seligman, okay? And this guy, super smart guy, has written many self-help books, super smart, right? And his TED Talk really, what he talked about in his talk really, really inspired me, and it's pretty much what I want to talk about today, okay? If you could pull up the title for my sermon for today, if you're looking by any chance, the title of my sermon is this question: are you happy? Ask the person on your right, are you happy? Now ask the person you ignored the first time, are you happy? Ask them again, are you happy? Are you happy? Okay. All right, that's enough asking, guys. Okay. So the question, are you happy, right? This question is probably one of the hardest questions to answer because it's such a broad question, right? It's really hard to describe because there's not like one simple way to answer this question, right? Because one person, they could think about like, oh, like, am I happy like right now, right? Is my day going well? Like, did I wake up on the right side of the bed? Am I happy right now? I could be, right? Or someone might gather information from like the past week. Have they had a good week? Has it been a good time at school, at work, whatever like that? Have I been happy this past week, or maybe this past month, this past couple months, right? This past year, right? It's really hard to determine whether or not you are happy, right? It's just hard, right? But in this guy's talk, in Dr. Seligman's talk, he talked about 3 different ways that people have tried to live a happy life, right? And that's pretty much what I want to talk about today, okay? 3 places that people derive their happiness from. 3 places that people gather or draw their happiness from, right? These are also 3 places that I myself have gathered happiness from, okay? So we're just going to jump right into it, all right? So the first place that people derive happiness from is in our pleasures. Can everyone say pleasures? When you think about what makes you happy, the first thing people will usually mention is their activities, the hobbies that they enjoy, right? Some people, they love to go watch movies. Some people love to go to concerts and dance and sing their favorite songs. Some people, they love to go to bars with their friends and drink their favorite cocktail while they're drinking and talking, whatever, right? Some people just enjoy being at home, right? They like to be at home, watch their favorite shows, maybe play a game, whatever. Everyone has different hobbies and activities that they enjoy that bring them happiness and pleasure, right? So Dr. Seligman, he talked about that this kind of life, this kind of way of living is called the pleasant life, right? And in this life, people seek as much positive emotion as possible, and they learn all the skills necessary in order to lengthen and amplify these positive emotions, right? So pretty much, you live your entire life going from one pleasure to the next pleasure to the next pleasure, like that. That's pretty much how it goes, right? And I'm here to tell you that is completely fine and okay. The Bible does support this kind of way of living. All the good things that are in the world, God created for us to enjoy, okay? There is nothing wrong in finding happiness in the hobbies that we enjoy, the hobbies that we like, okay? To prove it to you, I actually want to guide your guys' attention to the book of Ecclesiastes, okay? The most depressing book in the Bible, as it's known, right? So King Solomon, who is thought to be the original author of this book, at the time of him writing this, he had about everything you could ever want. He is, to this day, one of the richest people in the world ever, right? To have ever lived. He had everything you could ever want. His wealth was you couldn't even fathom how much money he had, right? But there's a paradox in his way of life. Because he had so much money, so much wealth, because he had everything you could ever possibly want, he was one of the unhappiest people ever to have lived. If you read the entire book of Ecclesiastes, it's just sad. This guy is just down in the dumps. He is so sad because he believes that because he has everything, nothing has value to him anymore. all the material things he has in his life are worthless to him. After searching all over throughout the entire course of the book to find what truly is valuable, what truly is worth it in the world, what he found was worth doing was this. If you can pull up Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verses 24. This is what he found to be the most valuable in this world. I'm going to read it to you guys. It says here, this is the wrong verse. Can you pull up Ecclesiastes instead? Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verses 24. This is what it says. He decided that there is nothing better than to enjoy food and drink and to find satisfaction in work. Then I realized that these pleasures are from the hand of God. If you could pull up the other Ecclesiastes verse, Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 7, he says the same thing later in the book too. So go ahead, eat your food with joy and drink your wine with a happy heart, for God approves of this, right? Even without reading the Bible, a lot of people live their lives this way, right? From one pleasure to the next, they keep looking for the next source of happiness, the next hit of dopamine, right? Now, my summers, for a very long time, were pretty much this. Like, my day today was usually chasing one pleasure to the next pleasure to the next pleasure, right? I wake up at like 11 to 12 p.m., I'll read my Bible, I'll eat something, and then I hop on a game, right? Maybe it's Fortnite, maybe it's like whatever Call of Duty or Battlefield was on at the time, or 2K, or like football, whatever. Like, I would just play whatever game, and then eventually when I got bored, I would just go home, I'll go lay down. I'll watch a show, I'll watch a movie, I'll do whatever. Then I got bored of that, and then I would probably get back on the game. Then I'll get off, and then I'll probably go eat dinner, and then I'd probably get back on after that, and I'd sleep and then rinse and repeat. That was pretty much how my summers were for a long, long time, right? And I was low-key living the life. I actually enjoyed that way of living, but after days and weeks and months and years of this way of life, this way of living, I started to feel like something was missing, right? I started to feel like, I was having fun playing games and watching movies and just chilling, but I felt like I wasn't doing anything meaningful. I wasn't doing anything that was worth contributing, My days, they really just gelled together, and there was nothing special about my day-to-day life, Dr. Seligman, he actually mentioned that in this pleasant life, there are actually two drawbacks to this way of living, right? The first one is that it's heritable. Can everyone say heritable? So what that means is pretty much this kind of life is usually you're born into it, right? Because typically the type of people that can live this kind of pleasant life, chasing one pleasure to the next, are usually the people that can afford these kind of pleasures, right? If you can catch my drift. The people that can usually are, more well off, right? And the second drawback is that this kind of life habituates. Big word, I had to Google it myself, okay? What that means is that once, it's kind of like a drug. You hit it the first time and it's like you get a really good high. But every hit after that, it gets less and less pleasurable, right? Similar to what I was doing, right? I was playing games and watching movies every day, but as time went on, I got less and less positive about it, less and less excited about it, I didn't like that. I didn't like the way life was for me, I felt like nothing in my life was contributing anything or worth anything. So I decided to change that. Right? So I turned to another place that I could find happiness, and that's going to be our second point, right? The second place that people derive their happiness from is in our passions. Can everyone say passions? Dr. Seligman actually called this the good life, okay? So what this is that when pleasures aren't enough to satisfy the soul, the second place that people look towards is their passions, the things that inspire them, the things that ignite a fire in them, right? In their spirits. Right? For example, some people's source of passion can come from their jobs, their careers, right? Whether it's, day trading, whether it's teaching, whether it's, zookeeping, painting, creating, maybe even washing dishes. For a lot of people, the saying that rings true for them is that if you love what you do, you'll never have to work a day in your life, right? And for other people, their passion lies not in their job or career, but it lies in their relationships, The people who you love and cherish and enjoy spending time with, those people are the ones that ignite that fire, that passion within you, right? Now, if we take a look at the book of Colossians, I'll show you guys that this way of life is also supported by the Bible, right? If we could pull up Colossians chapter 3, verses 23 to 24, Paul says here that work willingly at whatever you do, as though you were working for the Lord rather than for people. Remember that the Lord will give you an inheritance as your reward, and that the master you are serving is Christ. If you could pull up the Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 24 verse one more time, it said it earlier, right, in the last verse, right? I decided that there's nothing better to do than to enjoy food and drink and to find satisfaction in work, right? Then I realized that these pleasures are from the hand of God, right? Now, I said that I wanted to change my day-to-day routine, right? Because I was getting tired of having my life not really mean anything, not having my days mean anything. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start my change here, start my journey. I'm gonna start going to the gym, right? So I started going to the gym with Winston, right? He was like my trainer for a little bit. And at that time, it was probably like a couple of years ago, I was a really scrawny guy. I was probably like 140 pounds max, right? I was so skinny, so bony, right? But a lot of my weight was like gathered in my stomach. So I was like a skinny fat kind of build, right? So, I'll never forget the first couple of days. I am very grateful to Winston, even though he's not here right now. I'm very grateful to Winston that he was willing to help me on this journey and get started, right? Like I would pick him up, we would drive to Planet Fitness together, right? He would show me how to do all the different exercises and stuff like that, And, he was a really cool guy for doing that. And, I loved it. Like the first couple of days, I was pumped, I was hyped. Every single day, I was so excited to go to the gym. I would give like my 100% effort, whether it's like the pull downs or the loud raises, I was like, like I was going hard, bro. I'm telling you, I was trying so hard, And I actually remember this one time that it was like any other day, but what happened was, right, I picked them up from home. Like we drove to Planet Fitness together, right? And then we're putting our stuff in the locker room, whatever, right? And then Winston, he tapped my shoulder. He asked me, Ethan, have you ever tried pre-workout before? And I was like, no, what is that? And then, if you don't know what pre-workout is, it's pretty much this flavored powder that you mix in your water that you drink to give you like energy, right? To give you a little pep in your step, right? It helps give you be more energetic for your workouts, right? But I didn't know what that was. I was like, okay, what is it? And then he didn't tell me what it was. He just said, just take it. It's okay, just trust me. And then I was like, okay. And I was like, how do I take it? And then he said, sorry. I asked him, how do you take it, right? And like I told you, the way you're supposed to take it is you're supposed to mix in your water and drink it. So it easily like ingests it into your system, right? But Winston, he was like, no, don't do that. The best way to do it is that you dry scoop it. And then I'm like, what's dry scooping? And then, now if you don't know what dry scooping is, it's because the pre-workout, it's in a container and you have like a little spoon, right? So what he told me to do was that he told me to take the spoon like full of the pre-workout and just pop it in my mouth and chase it down with water. He told me that was the best way to take it. I was like, really? People really do this? He's like, yeah, people definitely do this. And I was like, I didn't know any better. So I was like, okay, sure, right? So I get a scoop, I pop it into my mouth, and I was like, okay, after this, I'm gonna put some water and chase it down. Bro, I didn't even get to the water, bro. Because when I popped the scoop of pre-workout into my mouth, I started coughing like crazy, bro. I was coughing up a storm, bro. It was literally like a projectile. Like it was crazy. It was my coughs were like a literal biohazard. It was terrible, right? Now, eventually, after I survived my near-death experience, right, I actually saw God like for a couple minutes. It was crazy, right? After I survived, bro, I was tweaking, bro. Because I've never been a caffeine guy, right? Like I've always tried to stay away from coffee and energy drinks because I'm scared I'm gonna get hooked, right? So this was my first hit of caffeine like ever, right? And on top of that, I dry scooped this, so everything went straight to my brain. Bro, I was tweaking, bro. It's actually like I just popped a pack of like perks. It was crazy, right? Now, today, like that specific day, right? I was doing back day, right? Winston was planning to teach me how to do deadlifts, right? It's an exercise for your back, right? You gotta like get in your stance, right? You gotta get in your stance, and you gotta go like that, right? So it works on your back, right? In general, right? Again, I've never done a deadlift ever, right? But because of that pre-workout, I deadlifted like close to 300 pounds that day. I was like 140. Bro, I was like 140, bro. No, I swear. Bro, no, I'm not lying. No, I promise you I'm not lying. I deadlifted like, it was like 3 plates on each side. And then, bro, trust me. No, I pulled it up so fast and I I did like 3 reps of that, and Winston was like, oh my God, Ethan, what the? He's like, how did you? No, Ethan, he went like, Ethan, how'd you do that? And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know. It's super energetic today. And then with every exercise after that, I hit like PRs with every single machine. Like, it was crazy, bro. I was legit tweaking. I've never felt that way before, you know? Bro, it was crazy. I have never experienced anything like that again. I don't know. I kind of want it to happen, but I don't want it to happen. I don't know. But anyways, everything that I experienced for the first couple of months at the gym, it's what Dr. Seligman called flow. Can everyone say flow? Flow. He explained that the difference between the pleasant life that we talked about before and this kind of life, the good life, is the way that they gather positive emotion, right? The first life focuses on pleasure, focuses on gathering as much pleasure as you can. The second way of living, the good life, it focuses on the flow, like the flow state, right? The job and relationships that make people the most happy in this way of life are the people that make you feel like time stops for you, right? The job and the relationships, the people that make you feel like time stops, that everything is okay, right? You know, for some people, right, the people that find passion and joy, like happiness in their jobs, right? You know, for example, like when some people, when they walk into like the Wall Street building, like at 9:30 in the morning, or for some other people, when they log in to, I don't know, Pico or log into like whatever job that they work at, right? For the places that make it feel like time has stopped for them, that the negative emotions are gone, that are away, those are the things that make people feel the most happy, the most positive, right? Now, I was having a blast, right? Like I said, I loved going to the gym for the first couple months. But it only lasted a couple months, right? Because afterwards, the high left me, right? Literally, the pre-workout, the pre didn't hit anymore. But the high of going to the gym and working out didn't work anymore, right? I started to become more lazy. I started to, find different excuses to not go to the gym as much anymore. The high of going to the gym, this passion just died for me, right? And I was like, man, that sucks. Now, I got to look somewhere else as another source of happiness. And the third place that I looked, and the third place that Dr. Seligman mentioned that people derive their happiness from is in our service to others. Can everyone say service? Now, Dr. Seligman calls this the meaningful life, right? We have the pleasant life, the good life, and the meaningful life, okay? Now, when the pleasures and the passions of life aren't enough to satisfy the soul, one of the last places people turn to is service, right? In this life, you take the skills and passions and pleasures that you have, that you know, and you recraft it in a way to benefit and fulfill the needs of others, right? You find happiness, you find your positive emotion in seeing other people happy, right? Now, I love this way of living, and obviously the Bible supports this way of living, right? If you look at 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 10 to 11, 1 Peter 4, verses 10 to 11, 1 Peter 4, chapter 4, verses 10 to 11. If we look in the book of 1 Peter, I'll tell you that the Bible easily supports this way of living, right? Living your life in service to others. It says here that God has given each of you a gift from his great variety of spiritual gifts. Use them well to serve one another. Do you have the gift of speaking? Then speak as though God himself were speaking through you. Do you have the gift of helping others? Do it with all the strength and energy that God supplies. Then everything you do will bring glory to God through Jesus Christ. All glory and power to him forever and ever. Amen. Now, this is the way I tried to live my life for the longest time, right? From as early as my kindergarten years. My parents always tried to teach me the value of serving others, to have a servant's heart. I'm so grateful that they did, because they were the reason I joined so many different ministries at church that I've talked about before, right? Whether it was playing guitar for Sunday school, whether it was volunteering at church outreach events on the weekends, whether it was creating content for our social media, even being up here is me trying to be of service to somebody else, right? Now, I actually want to share a story of how I've seen God so clearly in this area of my life. Now, we had there was Extend a couple of months ago, right? A couple of us, we got together and we went to this Extend conference, about 40 minutes away in Bensalem to this church, right? And it was a great time. I loved it. It was an amazing time, right? Now, after a worship session and a panel with 4 people on it, these 4 people on the panel, they went and spread out into breakout groups, right? And they had little seminars in each of them with different topics, right? And our group, we ended up splitting apart too to go to all those seminars, right? So there was one seminar about like how to hear the voice of God, right? There was another one about how to preach the gospel in public. There was another one about how to disciple people. And the last one, the one that I went to, was how to be a better leader, right? I felt like that was the most relevant for me, that could be the most helpful, right? So I walked over to this room where this seminar was being held. I sat down, I was ready to listen, and the speaker, his name was Pastor Marcus McFalling. Pastor Marcus, if you're watching, you're the guy, you're the man. So in his seminar, he went over the story of Joseph, and he worded it to make it relevant to how to be a better leader, right? It was a good seminar, right? Like I learned a lot of good points from there, right? And afterward, he opened it up for questions. He asked, hey, does anyone have a question for me before we end for today? And some people asked their questions, and then I ended up asking one too afterwards. And then I asked them, and what I pretty much asked him was, how do I balance being a young leader for a congregation while also being a normal guy who just wants friends, right? Because this is what I struggle with right now, finding that balance between being a leader but also being a normal guy that wants community too, right? Now, the answer he gave me wasn't anything too crazy. So I left the room feeling unanswered, right? But after everyone's seminars finished, some of us got together and we got Panda Express for lunch, right? So we're eating, whatever. I got like a lo mein, some sort of chicken and steak. Bro, Panda Express hits. Like, it's actually kind of good. It's kind of crazy. But after we all finished eating, right, we had fortune cookies afterwards, right? And nobody takes fortune cookies seriously. They're all mass manufactured. It's fake. Like, it's never an actual fortune, right? So I just opened mine just for fun to see what it said. And what it said actually surprised me. This is what it said. You are admired as a leader in your community, right? And my first reaction was like, whoa, this is kind of crazy because, I just went to a seminar about how to be a better leader. This is kind of crazy, right? But, besides that, I was like, I don't think this really applies to me. I don't think people really admire me or whatever. I'm just like a regular guy, right? So the Extend conference finishes and we go about our day. But then that Sunday rolls around, right? We have our normal service and then we have a Bible study afterwards, right? And, at that Bible study, we have one at 12. You should come to that after service. In this Bible study, the topic of godly dating and godly marriage came up, right? And I just finished talking about just a little bit about how me and Cecile's relationship is, how we try to implement have a godly relationship and whatever, stuff like that, right? Now, after I finished speaking, someone else raised their hand, right? Now, this person, she ended up saying a lot of things. She was going on for a little bit. But the thing that really caught my attention was this. She said that she doesn't have a lot of guidance on what a good godly relationship is because a lot of her examples are just like the relationships that her friends are in at school, right? She doesn't have a lot of good guidance, but among other relationships, one of the relationships she does see and does try to look up to as a good godly model was my relationship, was me and Cecile's relationship, Now, I'm not going to say her name because I'm not going to embarrass her or whatever, I don't want her to cringe or whatever, but that little piece that she said really touched my heart because what she said there fulfilled what that fortune cookie said, that in some way, shape, or form, there are people out there that do look up to me as a leader in my community, in this community, that in some sort of way, shape, or form, I am inspiring someone. I am doing something to make a difference. And that meant so much to me. Eventually, God opened up my eyes to be able to see how I've impacted other people, how God has used me to impact other people's lives. I've been able to see that God has used me, and that has really ignited a passion in me to keep going, It really has meant the world to me. And as I call the worship team back up, I just want to wrap this thing up and say one last thing, At the end of his TED Talk, Dr. Seligman mentioned, his whole point at the end was that in order to live a happy, full, meaningful life, you have to combine all the three things together, right? Find happiness in the pleasures and the hobbies that you have, find happiness in your passions, the things that ignite a fire inside of you, and find happiness in the service of others, right? That, according to science, according to psychology, this is how to scientifically live a happy life, how to maximize your chances of being happy, right? Now, I love his talk. He did great, super smart guy, good job, right? But I want to add a little bit more to that talk. I'm not just going to copy him verbatim, right? Now, again, like we said, everything that he said is supported by the Bible. These are great ways to find happiness. But that's just it. Everything that he mentioned can only bring about happiness. And if there's one thing we know about happiness, is that it's fleeting. Like dust in the wind, it will come and it comes and it goes. And there's nothing you can do to make it stay. Now, even if somebody were to find the perfect way to balance all three lives, right, and to have a perfect harmony between all of them, no one can ever avoid the days when none of the methods bring about any sense of happiness, right? Games are going to get boring. Shows are going to lose your interest, right? Work is going to get tiring. People are going to get on your nerves and get annoying. Eventually, you're going to have those bad days where there's like nothing is giving you happiness, bringing about happiness, right? Now, I think for the entirety of this sermon, we have been asking the wrong question. The question I asked you at the beginning is, are you happy, right? Now, I believe the proper question that I will be asking you, and the question that you should be asking yourselves every single morning is not, are you happy, but do you have joy? Now, joy is different from happiness in a very, very important way, all right? Happiness is something that we can find in the world, in your hobbies, in your passions, in people, in your service of others. You can find it in the world. But the problem with happiness is that it is temporary. It will not last. But joy does last. Joy does last, and the thing with joy is that it can only be found in the Lord our God. Now, the things that can bring us happiness in this world are great. Good things. These are good things that God has created for us to enjoy. They are not bad things in and of itself. But don't get it twisted. The things that give you happiness, that bring about happiness, they will never satisfy your soul like the Lord will, okay? These things will never truly give you the satisfaction that you are living a happy life, that you are good, that you are living a good life, Find joy in the Lord, for that is truly how you will be satisfied.